Aaron was not like other young men in his village. While most spent their days tending fields or trading goods, he spent his time reading old books and listening to the stories of elders. The desert stretched endlessly beyond the village, its golden sands hiding secrets that only a few dared to seek. Aaron often wondered what lay beneath the dunes, and he dreamed of discovering something that would make history remember his name. One morning, the sun rose with a fierce golden glow, and the air was dry and still. Aaron packed his bag with water, food, and a few tools. He had heard rumors of an ancient temple buried beneath the desert sands. According to an old map he had found in the village library, the temple held treasures from a time long before anyone could remember. Most villagers dismissed it as a legend, but Aaron's heart told him the temple was real. After hours of walking, under the scorching sun, he noticed shapes appearing through the heat waves. A line of broken stone pillars emerged from the sand, half buried and cracked by time. Aaron's pulse quickened. This had to be the temple. He cleared the sand around the largest stone structure, revealing a doorway carved with strange symbols. He recognized some of the marks from his studies. They were warnings, but also clues about what lay inside. Aaron paused. The villagers had always told him to stay away from ancient ruins. They are cursed, they had said, but he could not turn back now. The thirst for knowledge, for discovery, was too strong. With careful steps, he entered the temple. The air inside was cool and smelled of earth and age. Sunlight poured through cracks in the walls, lighting up patterns carved by hands that had lived thousands of years before him. As he walked deeper, Aaron found a hidden stairway leading down into darkness. The walls were lined with small carvings, depicting people, animals, and strange ceremonies. Some of the figures wore crowns, and some carried objects that glowed in the carvings. His excitement grew. This temple was not only real, it was a treasure of history. At the bottom of the stairway, Aaron entered a large chamber. The room was circular, with walls that shone faintly under the light from his lantern. And there, in the center of the chamber, lay a golden coffin. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The surface was polished so perfectly that it reflected the lantern's light like a small sun. Intricate designs covered every inch, animals, plants, and symbols that seemed to tell a story of a long-forgotten kingdom. Aaron stepped closer, his heart pounding. He ran his fingers over the carvings. They were smooth, as if the coffin had been made yesterday. Yet the dust around it told a different story. He wondered who had been placed inside. Was it a king, a priest, or someone even more important? He carefully examined the locks and hinges. Surprisingly, they were old but not broken. Nothing suggested that the coffin had been disturbed in centuries. He felt a strange energy in the room. The air was heavy, and a cold wind seemed to brush his skin even though the chamber had no openings. Aaron's instincts told him to step back, but his curiosity would not allow it. He remembered the stories of the villagers' warnings of a curse that protected treasures and punished those who opened them. But he told himself that these were only stories. Knowledge was not dangerous if it was handled carefully. With gentle hands, Aaron began to open the coffin. The lid was heavy, and it took all his strength to lift it slowly. As it moved, a faint glow emerged from inside, warm and golden. Aaron shielded his eyes for a moment, then lowered his lantern to see better. The light came from within the coffin, but he could not see anything clearly. The air around him trembled slightly, as if the room itself was alive. Suddenly, he heard a whisper. It was soft, almost like the wind, but the words seemed to call his name. Aaron froze. He told himself it was only his imagination, but his heart raced. The glow brightened, and shadows danced on the walls in patterns he could not understand. He stepped back but could not tear his eyes away. Inside the coffin, he saw a small, carved figure resting on a golden cushion. It looked like a miniature statue of a human, but its eyes, though closed, seemed alive. The figure's hands were folded over its chest, and around it were tiny symbols that shimmered in the light. Aaron realized that this object was more than a statue. It was a key to understanding the people who had built this temple. He took careful notes, sketching the designs and writing down the symbols. Time passed quickly, and the sun outside began to set, painting the desert in shades of red and orange. Aaron knew he had to leave soon, but he could not resist one more look inside the coffin. As he leaned closer, a sudden gust of wind rushed through the chamber. The lantern flickered, and the shadows on the walls twisted strangely. Aaron stumbled backward. The coffin lid slid slightly. Though he had not touched it, a chill ran down his spine. He realized that the villagers' warnings might have been true. The energy inside the coffin was not ordinary. Aaron took a deep breath and stepped back. He covered the coffin again and locked it with the ancient mechanism. The glow dimmed but did not disappear completely. He made a decision he would return to the village and gather help, scholars, historians, anyone who could understand this discovery safely. This was not a task for one person alone. As he climbed the stairway and emerged into the cool night air, the desert felt alive around him. The stars shone brightly, but the temple behind him seemed darker, more secretive. Aaron could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. He had uncovered something extraordinary, but he also sensed danger. The golden coffin held more than treasures. It held a story, a power, and perhaps a curse that had waited centuries for someone to find it. Aaron returned to the village, carrying the knowledge and excitement of his discovery. He knew that his life had changed forever. What lay ahead was uncertain, but he felt ready. The ancient temple had revealed its secret, and he would face whatever came next with courage and wisdom. That night, as he slept, he dreamt of shadows, moving across golden walls, whispering secrets he could not yet understand. And deep in the chamber, the golden coffin glowed faintly, as if it were waiting for him to return. The next morning, Aaron awoke with the desert sun warming his face. He felt a mixture of excitement and unease. The golden coffin he had discovered yesterday weighed heavily on his mind. He knew that opening it had unleashed something unusual. The villagers' warnings echoed in his memory, and now, more than ever, he wondered if they had been true. Aaron packed his bag again, this time with extra water and lanterns. He decided to return to the temple to study it further, but he also wanted to be careful. The desert stretched endlessly, and any mistake could be dangerous. As he walked, he noticed subtle changes in the environment. Birds flew in unusual patterns, and the wind carried a faint whisper that seemed almost like voices speaking in another language. Aaron paused, listening. The sound disappeared, but a chill ran down his spine. By midday, he reached the temple. The entrance looked the same as yesterday, yet the air felt different. The sand seemed darker, and the shadows cast by the sun were sharper, almost as if the temple itself was aware of his presence. He stepped carefully inside, placing his hand on the old stone doorway. A shiver passed through him. The golden coffin lay in the center of the chamber, untouched and glowing faintly. The light was softer than yesterday, but it pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Aaron approached cautiously. As he knelt beside the coffin, the whispering returned. This time, it was clearer, almost calling his name. He leaned closer, trying to hear the words, but they faded when he tried to focus. Suddenly, a small gust of wind rushed from the coffin, extinguishing his lantern. Darkness filled the chamber, yet the glow from the coffin remained, casting strange shadows on the walls. Aaron realized he was not alone. A movement flickered at the edge of his vision. He turned quickly, but nothing was there. The shadows danced, forming shapes that seemed to mimic people, animals, and symbols from the carvings outside. He felt a pull toward the coffin, as if something inside wanted him to open it again. Hesitation gripped him, but curiosity pushed him forward. He lifted the lid slowly, revealing the glowing figure inside. This time, the glow was brighter, and the carvings around the figure seemed to shift. Aaron blinked and rubbed his eyes. When he looked again, he noticed tiny sparks rising from the golden surface, forming shapes in the air. The shapes resembled birds, snakes, and ancient symbols that hovered above the coffin. He reached out, and the shapes scattered like smoke. A low humming sound filled the room, vibrating through the stone floor and walls. Aaron realized that the coffin had released more than light or energy. It was alive in a strange way, as if it had a mind of its own. He stepped back, his heart pounding. The whispers grew louder, more urgent. He could almost make out words, return or free, danger. The voice was neither male nor female, but it carried a weight that made him feel both afraid and fascinated. Suddenly, the figure in the coffin moved. It was subtle at first, a tiny twitch of the hands, but then it lifted slightly, hovering above the golden cushion. Aaron froze. He could feel the air around him shift, warm and cold at the same time. The chamber seemed to respond to the figure, with shadows stretching and retreating as if they were alive. The golden glow intensified, filling the room with a soft, almost blinding light. Aaron knew he had to act carefully. He did not want to anger whatever force had been released. Yet he could not leave without understanding it. He examined the carvings and the symbols around the coffin again. The patterns seemed to form a circle, like a protective boundary. He remembered reading about rituals in old books, ways to communicate with spirits safely. Perhaps this was the key. As he prepared to speak softly, a sudden gust of wind blew through the chamber. Sand and dust from the temple floor swirled around him. The figure in the coffin rose higher, now hovering at chest level. Its glow shifted between golden and deep amber, casting moving patterns on the walls. The whispers became louder, forming words that he could almost understand. Return me. Set me free. Find the key. Aaron realized the coffin had not only held a spirit, but had also trapped it. Whatever was inside had been waiting centuries to escape. He felt a mix of fear and responsibility. He could not ignore the presence any longer. The spirit seemed confused, angry, yet desperate. Aaron spoke softly. I do not wish to harm you. I want to understand you. Please, show me what you need. For a moment, the figure paused. The chamber became still, the shadows frozen on the walls. Then, the coffin lid slammed shut on its own, and the glow dimmed. The whispering faded, leaving only the low hum in the air. Aaron backed away, breathing heavily. He knew that this was only the beginning. The spirit had made its presence known, and it was no longer bound entirely by the coffin. He stepped outside, letting the warm desert air calm him. The sun was high in the sky, and the village seemed peaceful. Yet Aaron could not shake the feeling that something had followed him. He scanned the horizon. The sands looked normal, but he could sense a presence, distant yet aware. He wondered if the spirit had escaped beyond the temple walls. Even slightly, back in the village, Aaron noticed small signs that something had changed. The animals were restless, their eyes wide and alert. The wind carried strange sounds, faint whispers that vanished when he tried to listen closely. Crops near the village edges were wilting faster than usual. He began to connect the events to the coffin. The spirit was no longer confined. It had begun to influence the world outside the temple. Aaron knew he needed help. He could not face this alone. He visited the elders and scholars in the village, explaining what he had seen. Some listened with skepticism, while others remembered old stories of spirits trapped in treasures and ancient curses. No one doubted that the temple held power, but none had witnessed anything like this firsthand. Aaron realized he would need to study the ancient texts and prepare carefully if he hoped to contain the spirit again. That night, Aaron could not sleep. He dreamed of the golden coffin, glowing brightly under the moonlight. In his dreams, the figure floated above the sand, moving freely across the desert. The whispers called to him, urging him to return. He woke with a start, knowing he had to go back to the temple soon. The spirit was waiting, and its awakening would not be peaceful. Aaron's discovery had changed everything. What began as curiosity had become a challenge that tested courage, wisdom, and patience. He understood that the golden coffin was not just a treasure. It was a guardian of history and power, a force that must be respected. The spirit it held was ancient, but it had found a way to escape, seeking something it had lost long ago. As he prepared for his journey back to the temple, Aaron made a promise to himself. He would face whatever came next with care, courage, and respect. The golden coffin had awakened, and the world around it was beginning to feel its presence. The ancient curse was no longer confined. It was alive, and it had found a way to touch the desert once more. The morning after Aaron's encounter with the glowing figure, the village seemed quiet. Almost to quiet, the sun rose over the desert, painting the sand in gold and orange. Yet something felt different. Birds flew in uneven patterns, and the usual chatter of villagers was replaced by uneasy whispers. Aaron noticed the changes immediately. He had expected to return with answers from the temple, but instead, he felt a growing sense of worry. As he walked through the village, he saw a group of children staring at a small patch of wheat. The stalks were shriveled and brown, though the soil was moist and healthy. "Look," one child shouted. "The plants are dying." Aaron knelt beside the wheat, examining it carefully. He had never seen a disease like this before. It seemed unnatural, as if something invisible was slowly draining life from the crops. He remembered the golden coffin, the glowing figure, and the strange whispers. A chill ran down his spine. Aaron hurried to the marketplace, hoping to find some rational explanation. Farmers were talking in hushed voices, describing livestock acting strangely. Chickens refused to lay eggs, and goats wandered in circles, bleating. Nervously, the elders shook their heads, unsure of what to do. Aaron tried to calm them, explaining that the changes might be connected to the temple and the golden coffin. Some villagers laughed nervously, thinking he was imagining things, but others nodded in recognition. They remembered the old stories about curses that could spread beyond ancient tombs. By midday, the signs had grown more alarming. Animals ran wildly across the desert, sand swirling in small whirlwinds as though the wind itself had a mind. Windows in the village rattled without reason, and shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally along the walls. Aaron's heart pounded as he realized that whatever had been released from the coffin was not contained. It was moving beyond the temple and touching the world outside. Determined to understand the cause, Aaron gathered a few trusted friends, including Neela, a young woman skilled in reading ancient texts. They prepared to investigate the temple again, hoping to find clues in the chamber or the surrounding desert. Aaron felt the weight of responsibility. If the spirit continued to grow in power, the village could be in danger. He did not want fear to guide his actions, but caution and knowledge. The journey to the temple was difficult. The desert seemed to resist them, with sudden gusts of wind and strange mirages appearing on the horizon. Shadows moved across the dunes, sometimes forming shapes that resembled humans, other times animals. Neela whispered, "It is like the desert itself is alive. Something is guiding us or warning us." Aaron nodded, feeling the same strange energy. The golden coffin had released more than a spirit's hit, had awakened forces older than the village itself. As they approached the temple, the air grew cooler, though the sun still burned high. The entrance seemed darker than before, and the stone carvings glowed faintly under the light. Aaron paused at the doorway, feeling a strange pull from inside. The whispers returned, soft but clear. "Return, understand, restore." The words seemed urgent, as if the spirit was trying to communicate rather than harm. Aaron took a deep breath, stepping carefully into the chamber. The golden coffin was still in the center, glowing softly. The figure hovered above the cushion, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Round it, small sparks floated in the air, forming shapes that resembled birds, snakes, and symbols. Aaron studied the carvings on the walls, searching for a pattern. He realized the carvings might hold instructions or warnings for those who opened the coffin. Each symbol seemed to tell part of the story, how the spirit was trapped, and how it might be guided back safely. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the chamber, scattering sand and dust across the floor. The figure rose higher, and the glow brightened, casting moving shadows on the walls. The whispers became louder, forming words that Aaron could almost understand. "Danger. Hurry. Seek the key. Restore balance." He turned to Neela, who nodded silently. They understood each other without speaking. The spirit was trying to guide them, but it also seemed frustrated, struggling to communicate through centuries of silence. Aaron and Neela decided to leave the chamber carefully and examine the surrounding ruins. Perhaps there were clues outside that would help them understand the spirit's needs. As they stepped out, the desert responded. Small whirlwinds danced across the sand, and distant shadows moved in ways that seemed deliberate. The village, far behind them, lay under a strange quiet. Broken only by the occasional bleating of nervous animals, Aaron felt a heavy responsibility. The spirit was free, but it was also reaching out, touching the land and its people in ways they could not yet understand. Over the next few days, the village experienced more signs of the spirit's influence. Rivers that were usually clear ran murky, and the wind carried faint whispers that could not be traced. Villagers reported seeing shadowy figures at night, moving silently through the streets. Animals refused to eat or drink normally, and some crops wilted as if touched by an invisible hand. Aaron worked tirelessly to document everything, hoping to find patterns that could lead to a solution. He spent long hours in the village library, studying ancient scrolls and texts. Many described spirits trapped in treasures, waiting for someone to release them. Some texts mentioned that these spirits were not always evil. They could be angry, confused, or lonely, but they also had great power. Aaron realized that the figure in the golden coffin might not be dangerous by nature. It had been trapped for centuries, and now, released, it was reaching out in the only way it knew. Neela helped him decipher the symbols and scrolls. Together, they pieced together part of the story. The spirit had been bound by a pharaoh who feared its power. The golden coffin was designed to protect both the world and the spirit itself. But now, centuries later, the trap was broken. Aaron understood that the first step was not to fight the spirit, but to communicate with it and learn what it wanted. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Aaron and Neela returned to the temple. The chamber glowed faintly in the fading light, and the figure floated silently above the coffin. Aaron spoke softly, hoping the spirit could understand. "We are here to help. Show us what you need." The glow shifted, brighter for a moment, then dimmed. Sparks formed shapes in the air, pointing toward the carvings on the walls and the sand-covered floor. Aaron realized that the spirit was guiding them. The first signs in the village, the strange behavior of animals, wilting crops, and whispering winds were not random. They were a message, a call for help. The spirit was reaching out, showing them that something was wrong and needed attention. Aaron felt a mix of relief and worry. Relief because the spirit seemed willing to cooperate, and worry because the village's safety was at stake. That night, Aaron returned to the village, careful to observe the signs of the spirit's presence. He spoke to the elders and explained what he had discovered. Some believed him, others remained skeptical, but everyone agreed to watch carefully. The first signs were clear. Something powerful had awakened, and it would take courage, patience, and wisdom to guide it safely. Aaron knew that this was only the beginning. The golden coffin had been opened, and the spirit was free. The first signs were visible now, but the true challenge was still ahead. He vowed to protect the village, understand the spirit, and restore balance before the power of the ancient curse grew too strong. The awakening had begun, and the desert itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The morning sun rose over the village, but Aaron did not leave his small study. The events at the temple and the first signs in the village weighed heavily on him. He had spent days observing the strange happenings, documenting every detail. Yet the mystery of the golden coffin remained unsolved. Something had to explain the glowing figure, the whispers, and the influence reaching beyond the temple. Neela joined him early, carrying a bundle of scrolls she had uncovered from the village library. Many were old and fragile, covered in dust and faded ink, yet they contained writings that might provide answers. Among them, one scroll stood out. It was bound in golden thread and written in a careful, precise hand. The symbols on its cover matched those Aaron had seen on the walls of the temple. His heart quickened. This could be the key to understanding the spirit. Together, they unrolled the scroll on the table. The words were in the old language of the Desert Kingdom, but Neela had studied it extensively. Slowly, she began to read aloud, translating into the common tongue. The scroll told the story of a pharaoh who had ruled centuries ago. This pharaoh was wise and feared the misuse of powerful spirits, according to the record. One spirit had grown to powerful and to unpredictable. It had the ability to influence minds, control elements, and travel beyond the physical world. The pharaoh had decided that the spirit could not be left free, using gold and sacred rituals. He created a coffin to trap the spirit. The carvings, symbols, and precise measurements were all part of the magic that bound the spirit inside. The scroll described the process carefully, warning that anyone who opened the coffin without understanding the ritual could face the spirit's power directly. Aaron felt a chill. This explained why the figure in the golden coffin had appeared. So alive, it had been bound against its will, waiting for centuries. And now someone had released it. The scroll continued, revealing the spirit's nature. It was not inherently evil but misunderstood. It had once served as a guardian of knowledge and wisdom, helping the kingdom thrive. However, when it disobeyed the pharaoh's commands, it became restless. The coffin was designed to protect both the spirit and the world. The scroll emphasized that respect and care were necessary. Those who acted with greed or recklessness would suffer, but those who approached with courage and understanding could guide the spirit safely. Aaron and Neela realized that the glowing figure was trying to communicate, not attack. The first signs in the village, the strange behavior of animals, wilting crops, and whispering winds were the spirit reaching out for help. It wanted to restore balance, not harm anyone. Yet, it could not do so alone. Aaron felt both relief and urgency. Relief because the spirit was not evil, and urgency because the longer it remained partially free, the more its influence would grow, affecting the village and the desert beyond. The scroll also mentioned a ritual, though it was incomplete. It required returning the spirit to the coffin at the right time and performing precise steps to renew the binding. Mistakes could weaken the spell, causing the spirit to escape entirely. Aaron studied the diagrams and instructions carefully. The ritual involved symbols, chants, and offerings that represented the spirit's history and connection to the desert. Every detail mattered, and the timing had to align with the phases of the moon. Neela pointed to a section of the scroll that described a hidden chamber within the temple. The pharaoh created a secondary room, she said. It is not part of the main chamber we saw. This room contains the tools and artifacts needed for the ritual. Without them, we might not succeed. Aaron nodded. This explained why the figure had shown sparks and shapes when they opened the coffin. It was guiding them, indicating that they needed more than courage, they needed knowledge and preparation. As the day passed, Aaron and Neela organized their plan. They would gather supplies, study the scroll fully, and return to the temple to locate the hidden chamber. They also needed to monitor the village closely. The scroll warned that spirits bound in coffins could influence nearby life until restored, and they could sense fear, anger, or confusion. Aaron understood that calm and focus were essential. The villagers had to remain safe, and no rash actions could be taken. That evening, Aaron walked to the village edge, observing the desert. Shadows stretched across the sand, and faint whispers floated on the wind. He called softly, "We know you are there. We will help you return." For a moment, the wind shifted, and the glow of the coffin seemed to flicker in his mind's eye. It was a reassurance, subtle but clear. The spirit recognized their intent. This gave Aaron hope, but he knew the task ahead would not be easy. He returned to Nila's home, and together they studied the scroll late into the night. The pharaoh's writings were precise but challenging. Some symbols were unfamiliar, others seemed intentionally obscured to prevent misuse. Neela traced the carvings with her finger, connecting patterns to those in the temple. Aaron took notes, sketching diagrams, and writing instructions in a way they could follow later. They both felt the weight of responsibility. The golden coffin was not just an artifact, it was a key to maintaining balance between the spirit and the world. As they prepared for the journey back to the temple, Aaron reflected on the lessons of the scroll. Knowledge was powerful, but it required respect. The pharaoh had understood that even helpful spirits could become dangerous if mishandled. Aaron realized that the spirit's first signs in the village were a warning and a request. It trusted them to act wisely. If they failed, the consequences could be far-reaching. Before dawn, they left for the temple. The desert was quiet, but the air carried a tension unlike before. Aaron felt the spirit's presence growing stronger. The glowing figure was waiting, and the hidden chamber held the secrets they needed to complete the ritual. Every step they took was careful, deliberate, as if the desert itself was guiding them. By midday, they reached the temple. The entrance seemed to watch them, shadows shifting along the walls. Aaron and Neela entered the main chamber and approached the golden coffin. The figure hovered above it, its glow steady but intense. Sparks formed shapes in the air, pointing toward the walls and floor. Aaron understood that the spirit was showing the way to the hidden chamber. He and Neela carefully examined the walls, looking for seams or cracks. Finally, they discovered a small doorway concealed behind carvings of ancient symbols. The door was heavy but not locked. With a shared glance, they stepped inside, finding a smaller chamber filled with golden artifacts, scrolls, and ritual tools. Everything matched the description in the ancient scroll. Aaron felt a sense of awe and responsibility. The pharaoh had prepared this place centuries ago, trusting that someday someone would follow the instructions correctly. Inside the chamber, the air was still, almost sacred. Aaron and Neela set the items carefully on a cloth, arranging them according to the scroll's instructions. They took turns reading passages aloud, ensuring every detail was correct. The spirit's glow pulsed in response, brighter when they performed actions correctly, dimmer when adjustments were needed. It was a delicate process, demanding focus, patience, and respect. Aaron realized that understanding the spirit was as important as the ritual itself. The golden coffin was not simply a prison, it was a connection. The pharaoh had bound the spirit for protection, but also for guidance. Now, centuries later, it sought balance. Aaron felt a deep responsibility to see this through, knowing that the future of the village, the desert, and the spirit itself depended on their actions. The scroll had given them knowledge, but the task had only just begun. The spirit was awake, the village had felt its influence, and the golden coffin waited patiently for them to complete the ritual. Aaron understood that courage alone would not be enough. They needed wisdom, respect, and careful planning to succeed. The desert air was hot and dry as Aaron and Neela prepared to leave the temple. The golden coffin waited quietly in its chamber, the spirit's glow steady but alert. They carried the tools, scrolls, and artifacts needed to complete the ritual. Yet, as they stepped outside, they realized that the spirit's influence was spreading faster than they had anticipated. Shadows shifted on the dunes, small whirlwinds formed without warning, and the wind carried faint whispers of the spirit calling for help. Aaron tightened the straps of his bag and adjusted his lantern. Neela glanced at the horizon, where the sun reflected off distant sand dunes. "It's moving," she said. "I can feel it." "The spirit isn't staying in one place." Aaron nodded. He had noticed the same thing. The glowing figure had appeared near the village, then at the temple, and now the energy in the desert suggested it was traveling further. They had to follow quickly, or the spirit might move beyond their reach. Their journey began on foot, crossing vast stretches of golden sand. The desert was unforgiving, but Aaron and Neela pressed forward, guided by intuition and the subtle signs of the spirit. Occasionally, they glimpsed strange shapes on the horizon, shadows that seemed to watch them from a distance. The wind carried the faintest hum, like a song from a distant place. Aaron realized the spirit was aware of them and perhaps leading them towards something important. By midday, they reached the first ruin outside the temple. Crumbled walls and broken columns hinted at a city that had existed long before the village. The sand had swallowed most of it, but traces of carvings and statues remained. Aaron knelt to examine the marks, recognizing symbols that matched the scroll. "The spirit has been here," he whispered. "Look at the carvings. They're recent, just like the glowing shapes we saw." Neela agreed. "It's guiding us through its history. Each place has meaning." As they explored the ruins, the spirit began to show itself more clearly. Sparks of golden light floated above the sand, forming shapes of birds, snakes, and human figures. Each shape pointed in a direction, creating a trail for Aaron and Neela to follow. Sometimes the shapes disappeared quickly, as if testing their attention. Other times, they lingered, providing guidance and reassurance. The chase was both exhausting and thrilling. Every step brought them closer to understanding the spirit's purpose. By late afternoon, the desert began to change. The wind grew stronger, and the sun cast long, sharp shadows. Sandstorms rose in the distance. Moving like living walls, Aaron and Neela took cover behind a ruined wall. The spirit is restless. Aaron said, "It's afraid, maybe frustrated. We need to stay calm and follow carefully." Neela nodded, wiping sweat from her forehead. "It's like it wants to test us to see if we are patient and careful." They waited until the storm passed, observing the patterns in the sand that marked the spirit's movement. As night fell, the desert transformed, stars blanketed the sky, and the temperature dropped sharply. The spirit's glow became more vivid, lighting their path through the dunes. Shadows danced across the sand, forming shapes that resembled ancient guardians. Aaron and Neela followed, understanding that these signs were not random. The spirit was teaching them, preparing them for the challenges ahead. The next day, they reached another ruin, larger than the first. This one had intact walls and a central courtyard. In the center stood a statue of a figure holding a staff, with symbols carved along its base. Aaron compared the markings with the scroll. "This is a place of power," he said. "The pharaoh used sites like this to control the spirit and keep balance. The glowing shapes we follow, they lead us here for a reason." Neela carefully examined the statue. "We must perform small steps before the final ritual. Each site strengthens our connection with the spirit and prepares it for its return." The chase continued through the desert, each location presenting new challenges. At times, the spirit created illusions to test them. Shadows appeared as walls or pathways that led nowhere. Birds flew in patterns that seemed confusing at first but revealed hidden clues. When studied closely, Aaron learned to observe carefully, to interpret the symbols and signs without fear. Neela's knowledge of the ancient language helped decipher the hints, guiding them closer to their goal. By the fourth day, they approached a canyon that seemed almost impossible to cross. High cliffs and narrow paths created natural barriers. Sparks of light hovered at the edges, indicating safe passages. Aaron and Neela carefully followed, helping each other across dangerous ledges. The spirit's guidance was subtle but effective. It was as if the chase itself was teaching them courage, patience, and understanding the very qualities necessary to perform the final ritual. At the canyon's end, they found another hidden ruin, partially buried in sand. Aaron brushed away layers of dust to reveal a doorway covered in carvings. The glow of the spirit intensified, hovering over the doorway. Neela translated the symbols quickly. "This is the last place before the final chamber," she said. "The pharaoh built it as a final checkpoint. We must be ready. One wrong step could weaken the spirit or disrupt the ritual." Aaron nodded. They carefully prepared to enter, knowing that every detail mattered. Inside the ruin, the air felt charged. Shadows moved along the walls, responding to their presence. Sparks of golden light formed shapes in the air, showing steps and movements. Aaron realized that the spirit was teaching them one final lesson: cooperation, focus, and respect. They followed each movement carefully, performing gestures indicated by the glowing shapes. With each correct step, the spirit's glow pulsed brighter, as if thanking them for understanding. By evening, they reached a central chamber, larger and more ornate than any previous ruin. The walls were covered in carvings depicting the spirit's history, the pharaoh, and the kingdom's rise and fall. In the center of the room lay a shallow depression, perfectly shaped for the golden coffin. The spirit hovered above it, its glow steady and strong. Aaron and Neela understood that this was the location for the final ritual, the place where the spirit would be restored safely. As they prepared the chamber, Aaron reflected on the journey. The chase had been exhausting, but it had also taught them much. The spirit was not an enemy, but a guide, showing them the importance of patience, respect, and knowledge. The ruins had revealed its history and purpose. Each step had brought them closer to understanding and preparing for the ritual that could restore balance. Night fell, and the desert was calm for the first time in days. The stars shone brightly, reflecting off the golden glow of the spirit. Aaron and Neela sat beside the glowing figure, reviewing the scroll and planning their actions carefully. The chase had ended, but the true challenge was about to begin. The golden coffin awaited. The spirit hovered above, and the final ritual would determine the balance between the spirit, the temple, and the village. Aaron looked at Neela and said softly, "We are ready. We have learned from the chase, from the signs, and from the spirit. Now it is time to restore balance." Neela nodded, her eyes reflecting the golden glow. Together, they prepared for the ritual that would decide the future of the spirit and the desert itself. The chase had taught them much, but it had also tested their courage and wisdom. They understood that success would require more than knowledge. It would require respect for the spirit, care in every action, and trust in each other. The desert seemed to hold its breath, waiting to witness what would happen next. The first light of dawn stretched across the desert as Aaron and Neela returned to the temple. After days of chasing the spirit across ruins and dunes, they finally carried all the tools, scrolls, and artifacts needed for the ritual. The golden coffin awaited them in the center of the chamber, its glow steady and bright. The spirit hovered above it, golden sparks swirling in the air, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Aaron set down the scrolls carefully, arranging the tools according to the instructions. Neela followed the diagrams, placing each artifact exactly where it belonged. The carvings on the walls reflected the morning light, showing ancient symbols that had guided them through the desert. Every detail mattered, for one mistake could weaken the ritual or anger the spirit. Aaron felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The spirit's glow pulsed as they worked. Sparks formed shapes in the air, birds, snakes, and lines that seemed to draw invisible paths around the coffin. Aaron realized the spirit was communicating, showing them how to begin. He and Neela followed its guidance, performing gestures and arranging symbols exactly as indicated. The air vibrated with energy, carrying a low hum that seemed to come from deep within the temple walls. Once the tools were in place, Aaron opened the scroll to the first set of instructions. The pharaoh's words were clear, but required precision. They had to recite chants in the old language, align the symbols, and place offerings representing the spirit's history. Neela began reading aloud, her voice steady. Aaron followed, arranging the golden artifacts and adjusting the light from his lantern to illuminate the carvings correctly. The spirit's glow pulsed brighter, as if acknowledging their careful work. As they continued, a sudden gust of wind swept through the chamber. Sand swirled in small whirlwinds across the floor, and shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls. Aaron felt a shiver run down his spine. The spirit was reacting. It was powerful, restless, and full of energy, yet it seemed to understand that they were there to help, not harm. The hum grew louder, vibrating through their chests, filling the chamber with a sense of anticipation. The first stage of the ritual required them to align the spirit's energy with the golden symbols on the coffin. Sparks formed lines in the air, connecting the carvings on the walls with the artifacts on the floor. Aaron and Neela traced these lines with their hands, careful to match the patterns exactly. As they did, the spirit rose higher, its glow intensifying, illuminating the chamber like sunlight trapped indoors. Aaron realized that the spirit's cooperation was as important as their actions. It was part of the ritual, not just a force to be controlled. Next, they began the chants. The old language was complex, each word carrying weight and meaning. Neela spoke clearly, with precision, while Aaron repeated after her, adjusting the tone and pace. The chamber seemed to respond. The walls shimmered, and the carvings glowed faintly. The spirit's energy flowed along the lines they had traced, moving in harmony with their words. Aaron felt a sense of connection, as if the spirit and the temple were guiding him personally. The ritual required offerings of water, sand, and small stones from each site they had visited. Aaron placed the offerings carefully in a circle around the coffin, following the diagrams on the scroll. Sparks from the spirit formed shapes above each offering, acknowledging their placement. The energy in the chamber grew stronger, filling the room with warmth and light. Aaron realized that the spirit's first signs in the village, the chase across the ruins, and every test along the way had prepared them for this moment. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the chamber floor, larger than before. The spirit's glow flickered, and the air pulsed with energy. Aaron and Neela froze. The The scroll had warned that the spirit might react unpredictably. It was not angry, but testing their focus and courage. Aaron took a deep breath and steadied his hands. "We are here to help," he said softly. "We will follow your guidance." The glow returned fully, sparks swirling gently around the coffin. As the sun reached its peak, the final stage of the ritual began. Aaron and Neela recited the last chants, moving carefully around the symbols and offerings. The spirit's glow expanded, filling the chamber with golden light. Shadows on the walls danced, forming patterns that told the story of the pharaoh, the kingdom, and the spirit's binding. Aaron felt a sense of all this was not just a ritual. It was history alive before their eyes. The scroll described the last step. The spirit must enter the coffin willingly. The pharaoh's writings emphasized respect and patience. Force would not work. Aaron and Neela extended their hands toward the floating figure. Showing acceptance and understanding, sparks formed a bridge from the spirit to the coffin, and a low hum filled the chamber. The spirit hesitated briefly, then slowly lowered itself toward the golden coffin. Its glow bright but calm. Aaron adjusted the lid carefully, ensuring it aligned with the carvings and symbols. Neela chanted softly, guiding the spirit into its place. As the figure settled, the golden light filled the room, then gradually dimmed to a steady glow within the coffin. The air in the chamber shifted, warm and peaceful, carrying a sense of completion. Aaron and Neela stepped back, breathing heavily, but relieved. They had succeeded in guiding the spirit safely back into the coffin. The chamber was quiet now, but not empty. The carvings on the walls seemed to shimmer faintly, as if acknowledging the ritual's completion. The spirit's glow pulsed softly. Within the coffin, calm and steady, Aaron felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The village, the dessert, and the history of the kingdom were now safe once more. He and Neela had learned courage, patience, and respect for the forces beyond human understanding. Before leaving the chamber, Aaron carefully locked the coffin, ensuring the symbols and carvings were aligned correctly. Neela checked the scroll one last time. Everything matched the pharaoh's instructions. The ritual was complete. The golden coffin rested in its chamber, holding the spirit safely, yet ready to awaken again if needed. Aaron realized that this moment was not just an ending, it was a connection between the past and the present, a reminder that history and respect for ancient knowledge were powerful. As they stepped outside, the dessert greeted them with calm winds and the warm glow of the afternoon sun. Shadows moved normally, animals returned to their usual behavior, and the village in the distance seemed peaceful once more. Aaron knew that the spirit's influence had been contained, and that balance had been restored. The first signs in the village, the chase across the ruins, and the glowing figure in the coffin were now part of a story that would live on in memory. In history, that evening, as the stars filled the sky, Aaron and Neela returned to the village. Villagers greeted them with relief, noticing that the strange happenings had stopped. Crops were steady, animals calm, and the wind carried only gentle sounds. Aaron shared what they had learned, explaining that the spirit had not been dangerous but misunderstood. The villagers listened, their eyes wide with awe and gratitude. Aaron realized that the golden coffin was more than a treasure, it was a guardian of knowledge, a symbol of respect for the past. The spirit had taught them courage, patience, and understanding. The dessert itself seemed to acknowledge their success. Calm and serene under the night sky. As he prepared to rest, Aaron looked toward the temple in the distance. The golden coffin glowed faintly within the chamber, a reminder of the spirit and the balance they had restored. He knew that the adventure had changed him forever. History was not just in books. It was alive, waiting to guide those who were willing to listen. The ritual had been completed, but Aaron understood that respect and vigilance were needed always. The ancient spirit rested peacefully, yet its story continued. Waiting for the future to learn from it, Aaron felt proud, grateful, and ready to protect the knowledge that had been entrusted to him. The sun rose slowly over the village, casting golden light across the desert and the temple in the distance. Aaron and Neela walked quietly through the village streets, observing life returning to normal. Animals grazed peacefully, children played, and the wind carried only gentle whispers through the palm trees. The strange disturbances that had plagued the village were gone. The spirit was safely contained, and balance had been restored. Aaron felt a deep sense of relief, but also a lingering curiosity. The golden coffin held the spirit now, but its presence had left a lasting impression. The lessons learned from the chase, the ruins, and the ritual remained vivid in his mind. He realized that the spirit had not only tested their courage and patience, but had also shared its wisdom. There was knowledge in every glow, every spark, and every shadow. Neela joined him at the edge of the village, where the desert stretched endlessly. "It feels peaceful," she said, her voice soft. "The spirit is calm now." "We did everything right," Aaron nodded, but his eyes were drawn to the distant temple. The golden coffin lay within, glowing faintly, as if acknowledging their respect and care. The spirit's energy had not vanished completely, it lingered, a gentle reminder of the connection between past and present. That evening, Aaron and Neela returned to the temple to ensure everything remained in order. The chamber was quiet, the air still, and the golden coffin rested in the center. Sparks of light floated briefly above the coffin, forming shapes that resembled birds and symbols they had seen before. Aaron realized that this was the spirit's farewell, a silent message of gratitude and recognition. It had been restless for centuries, yet it had guided them, teaching lessons that could not be found in any book. Aaron and Neela carefully inspected the carvings on the walls and the tools they had used for the ritual. Everything was intact, just as the scroll had instructed. They understood that the pharaoh's design had been precise and wise. The spirit had been bound for protection, but it had also been entrusted to guide those who approached with respect. Aaron felt honored. They had been chosen to complete a task that connected them to history, knowledge, and a power far older than their village. After ensuring the chamber was secure, Aaron and Neela walked outside. The desert stretched endlessly, calm under the moonlight. The golden glow of the coffin was visible even from outside, faint but steady. Aaron thought about the journey they had taken to chase across ruins, the test in the desert, and the rituals that had required patience and care. He realized that the spirit had not only tested them, but had also protected the village indirectly, guiding them to understand its nature before danger could grow. That night, Aaron dreamed of the spirit. It appeared as a figure of light, hovering above the desert, surrounded by sparks that formed patterns of ancient symbols. In his dream, it spoke not with words, but with feeling, a sense of gratitude, peace, and encouragement. Aaron awoke with a sense of clarity. The spirit had imparted its final lesson. Knowledge, respect, and courage were as important as any ritual. Balance was delicate, and history held the keys to understanding. The next morning, the villagers gathered to hear Aaron and Neela's story. They shared what they had learned from the ancient scroll, the chase across the desert, and the ritual in the temple. The villagers listened attentively, amazed by the courage and wisdom displayed. Aaron explained that the spirit had not been evil but misunderstood. The strange signs and disturbances had been attempts to communicate, to show the importance of balance and respect. The villagers felt relief, but also a renewed sense of connection to the land and its history. Over the following days, Aaron and Neela continued to observe the village and the surrounding desert. The first signs of unrest had disappeared, and life returned to its normal rhythm. Crops grew steadily, animals behaved naturally, and the winds carried gentle whispers rather than warnings. Aaron realized that the spirit's influence was still present in subtle ways, a reminder of the lessons learned and the responsibility they now shared. One afternoon, as they walked toward the temple, Aaron noticed faint sparks rising from the sand. They did not form shapes this time, but drifted slowly, almost like tiny stars returning to the sky. Neela observed them quietly. "It's the spirit's farewell," she said. "It's leaving a trace of its presence, but now it trusts the world to be safe." Aaron smiled. He understood that the spirit had completed its purpose and that they had honored it correctly. Its energy remained, but no longer as a threat. Aaron and Neela returned to the village to record everything they had learned. They documented the scroll, the carvings, the rituals, and the spirit's guidance. Their notes would ensure that future generations could understand and respect the ancient powers. They emphasized courage, patience, and careful observation. History, they realized, was not only about the past, but also about the choices made in the present. Respect for the unknown could protect life, balance, and knowledge for generations. As the weeks passed, the villagers settled into normal life. Children played without fear, farmers tended crops with confidence, and the wind carried only the usual gentle sounds of the desert. Aaron and Neela occasionally returned to the temple to ensure that the golden coffin remained secure, its glow steady and calm. They felt a deep sense of pride and responsibility. The spirit had been contained, the village protected, and history honored. One evening, Aaron stood on a dune overlooking the village, the sunset in brilliant shades of gold and orange. He thought about the journey, the discovery of the golden coffin, the first signs in the village, the chase across the ruins, and the final ritual. He realized that courage, knowledge, and respect had guided every step. The spirit's presence had tested them, but it had also taught them history was alive, and they had been part of it. Neela joined him silently, and together they watched the desert glow under the sunset. The spirit's story will continue, she said softly. Even if we never see it again, its lessons will remain. Aaron nodded. He knew she was right. The golden coffin and the temple were not only a connection to the past, but also a guardian for the future. The spirit's farewell was complete, but its wisdom remained, woven into the desert, the village. And their hearts died as darkness fell. Aaron and Neela returned to the village. Stars twinkled above, clear and bright in the desert sky. The wind carried a gentle whisper, a quiet acknowledgement of the spirit's presence and their success. Aaron felt peace. The ancient curse had been understood, guided, and restored to its rightful place. Life, balance, and history were safe. Aaron reflected on the journey one last time. The golden coffin had been more than a treasure, it had been a teacher. The spirit had challenged them, guided them, and left them with knowledge that would endure. Courage, patience, respect, and wisdom had been tested, and they had passed. The village, the desert, and the spirit were now in harmony. History had spoken, and they had listened. The next morning, Aaron and Neela walked through the village, feeling the calm and peace that had returned. Children laughed, animals roamed freely, and the winds carried only gentle songs. The golden coffin rested silently in the temple, a guardian of history and balance. Aaron knew that the spirit's story was complete for now, but its lessons would live forever. As they looked toward the horizon, the desert seemed to shine with quiet energy. Aaron smiled, understanding that the ancient curse had become a story of learning, courage, and respect. The spirit had departed, leaving guidance for those willing to see and listen. And in the heart of the desert, the golden coffin waited patiently, a symbol of history, wisdom, and the enduring connection between the past and the present.